Hey guys, welcome back to another Maledictor update. You can see by the clock here, it's a little late in the day for this one, and that's because I was so eager to get working on the game this week that I actually completely forgot I was supposed to make this update video. So, I caught it at the last minute. So, let's jump on into it. It has been a productive month. First off, redid the enemy spawners. So this is a nice one for me. The enemy spawners before were kind of done in a stupid way, but that's mainly because I didn't quite know how I was going to do the enemy spawning system, and I wanted to try to involve the save system as little as possible. So, the way that I did it before was I had a trigger box, and I had an invisible box, and I had these enemy tokens. And the way that I did it is I would have it to where I would check for any of these enemy tokens inside of this invisible box. And when a player would walk through the trigger box, then all of the enemy spawners inside of that invisible box would spawn. And that worked as a nice way to prevent myself from having to save the spawn token locations, because the less I have to involve the save system, the better, because it makes saving and loading a lot faster, and it also reduces the chances of certain data not being passed through correctly, because a lot of the times when I run into bugs with this game, it's basically because of that. It's not necessarily with normal gameplay, but when somebody saves the game and loads it, then that's when a lot of the bugs come up, because data's not being passed through correctly. So I found a way of having the enemy tokens not even needing to interact with the save system. It's very nice, but that way of doing it made it to where I couldn't have enemies in a certain area spawn at one point in the game, and then as you're coming back through the level, you can't respawn enemies in an area unless the enemies already existed to begin with. So the way that I do it now is I got rid of the box overlap, so now it is a trigger box that is assigned to a group, and then I am able to assign a group number to the enemy tokens. So that way you pass through the trigger box, and if it's group 1, then all the spawn tokens that are in group 1 spawn. And it's a much better way of doing it, and that way I can have enemies from different groups in the same area, just side by side, and the ones will only spawn when they're supposed to. So I can have enemies spawn in, I guess, multiple times in the same area. They're just part of a different group. So it's a much better way of doing it. E1M6 spawners altered. That's basically what I just told you to. More sprites. Keeping with traditions, we've got more sprites. More models as well, which is very useful for me, because a lot of these models are going to be able to be used in previous levels too. Not in all of them, but here and there, just to kind of touch up the previous levels a bit. Next, removed push bumpers from regular cars. This one actually needs a little bit of context here. So we've got our car model here, and we've got our police car model. The police car, you can see it's burned up here. This was actually the first car model that I did in the game, and that's because the intro of E1M1 actually has a burned out police car. And so when I went to make the civilian cars, I pretty much just cut the siren off of the top of the car and put wheels on it. But that meant that it had a push bumper. So if you can see here, there's this little cage right here on the front of the car. Police cars have things called push bumpers, which is so that they can, push a car if they need to do something like pit it or block it and not damage their own car. So you pretty much only see them on police cars, and because I just took the siren off, all the regular cars had push bumpers on them. So I finally went in and I took the push bumpers off, which was much more of an event than I wanted it to be, but we got it working so that now regular civilian cars don't have push bumpers. That's a nice touch up. That it's a weird problem that it existed in the first place, but you know, whatever. Sometimes you have to work backwards. Next, the Sinister Spirits arcade game was added. In the Sinister Spirits arcade game, if we go here, you can see it. And alright. So it is definitely my most visually advanced one, that is for sure.
Welcome back.
And it is a timing-based one. So,
Bonus
you get 3 in a row, and you get this little bonus game where you have to try to shoot one of those balls into that box. And whether you make it in the box or not, doesn't matter. It's just, you get 100 points for getting each timing correct. And then you get 500 points per ball that you make. So the balls, that's where you make your real points. And I have it so that as you get a streak going, you're able to get an extra ball each streak. So you make 3 in a row, you get 1 ball. Then you make 3 in a row again, and you get 2. And it goes up until 5. So you can get a pretty good streak going and get a lot of points pretty quick, but it's tough. It's a timing-based game, and timing-based games aren't necessarily my thing, but I know a lot of people like them, so it's good to get a little bit of variety in there. And the Sinister Spirits game was originally supposed to be a coin dropper, but ran into a lot of problems with the physics engine for that. I believe I mentioned it before, where the coins would actually fall through the machine. I managed to fix that, but then the coins have a collision box around them. It's a simplified collision is what it's called. And that means that the edges of the coins aren't completely round, and they're actually like pretty flat. It puts like a hexagon around them. And so the problem with that is that if a coin lands on its edge, like you would have with a coin dropper, the coin will, a lot of the time, land on a flat and just get stuck in the machine. So, basically, I would have to kind of write my own physics for that. And I'm not ruling that out if I want to do a coin dropper in the future, because I still have 3 more arcade games to do, because I want to have a unique one in each level for the first episode. So that means that I'm going to have a few more to go through, and it was kind of an event figuring out the Sinister Spirits game. So I'm not writing out that we'll do a coin dropper and I'll just have to write my own physics for the coin. It could happen, but, you know, we'll get to that when we get to it. Anyway, I learned a lot about the physics in this one, so that was nice. It's always good when you can learn a little something else about the engine, because that enables a lot of things, and that speeds up bug fixing a lot. So I'm glad that I got that figured out. Next, we have got Greg's Game Guides radio show added. The Greg's Game Guides radio show is adding a little bit of more variety into the radio shows. It's not the Sinister Spirits one, which, you know, we've got our ghost show, we've got our conspiracy theory show, Pursuit of Truth, and now we've got Greg's Game Guides, which is he's basically kind of a tabletop game nerd running his radio show and giving game tips. And this one is all about a feature that I put some effort into adding into this game, and it's it's got a bit of game history in it, so it should be interesting just from a trivia perspective, but also from kind of a game development perspective too. So I'm happy with how it came out. Next, E1M6 switches and keys. Pretty self-explanatory. Fixed a Molotov mini fires glitch. So with the mini fires with the Molotov, you throw the Molotov, it breaks, and then spawns a little, some tiny fires around, just to add a little bit more life into the Molotovs. They just were having some trouble every now and then with like spawning and despawning. So I fixed that. They're working good now. And then I improved them. So you see the little mini fires here. And they all make their own individual sound effects now. And will whoosh out on their own. So I like that much, much, much better than how they were. So it's an improvement overall, but it's an improvement on an improvement. So I'm really happy with how the Molotovs are feeling. I'm really liking how these extra effects that I added in the last time feel. So hopefully the testers will appreciate the difference. If they don't, they're out of the testing group. No, it's fine. Anyway, next, fixed a spawner bug. I believe that was a problem with the save loading system, but I can't quite remember what. So I don't want to go into detail about something I can't really remember. So I think I remember it, but I'm not entirely sure. It's been a long month. Anyway, next, drone enemy added. So they're little kamikaze drones, and yeah, they can hurt, and they're pretty quick. But when they blow up in an area that doesn't just affect you. So they can be very useful for you as well, as long as you kind of recognize them. And you'll hear them before you can see them a lot of the time. So just keep an ear out for them. Next, we've got poltergeists added. Poltergeists so far are only useful in this level, but they can definitely be useful in the rest of the game too. They're technically an enemy because they can damage you, but they mostly just exist to make sound around a level. They're invisible and they can play sound effects, but they can also spawn fires. So don't run into their fire. That won't do you any favors. Next. E1M6 enemies, E1M6 weapon and items, secrets, blockers, barriers, nav mesh, and finished. Yes, E1M6 is finally done. I guess technically I'm waiting on the soundtrack for that, but that'll be done this week. That will be in this upcoming alpha build for the testers, so it'll be completely done very soon, but design-wise, it's all done. So that's very nice. I've been working on this level forever. Feels like, anyway. I think it probably took about the same amount of time as E1M5, which that was a long one too, but this one felt really long because I wound up losing about a month because of art commissions, so felt like I was on it a lot longer than I was. Nav Invoker added. The Nav Invoker is a very, very nice little bonus here. So, Nav meshes. Nav meshes are basically a little blanket that you put down over the level that shows the enemy where they're able to walk. And really all AI enemies, like all NPCs that use that would walk around, they all use a nav mesh. And the nav mesh can actually use up quite a bit of performance if it's over a wide area. So, the solution to that is actually a thing called a nav invoker. So when I put in the nav mesh. I went into the map to test something and noticed that I went from about 130 FPS in the editor to about 60. It was a drastic drop. And so then I went in and I put a nav invoker onto the player character. And the way that a nav invoker works is that it's essentially is specifying a radius around the player, or around the invoker, but since it's on the player, around the player, that's within a certain radius, and says only spawn a nav mesh within this radius. And if it's outside of this other radius, then just despawn it. So that way, you're only having to worry about performance with the nav mesh within a certain distance of the player. And that wound up basically negating all the performance loss that the nav mesh gave me before. And the great thing about this is that I don't have to change anything about any of the nav meshes in the previous levels. And it just applies to all of them. So that means that pretty much wound up getting a performance boost across the board, across every level. Some of them more so than others, depending on the size of the level, but either way, that is still a massive performance boost. Really, this is the first map where I noticed losing the performance, but you know, it should be a boost across the board nonetheless. So that'll be very nice. I will take game-wide performance increases wherever I can. Next, enemy death collision fixed. Enemy death collision, that was an issue I was having that I didn't notice before, where when enemies would die, before they would get swapped out for their dead bodies, they would be dead, but they would still have collision enabled for line traces and for dynamic objects like IEDs and Molotovs. So an enemy would die, you try to shoot an enemy behind them, and you would just be hitting air because the dead body would be blocking it before it got despawned. And same thing with Molotovs. That was really noticeable with Molotovs and with the submachine guns. So I got that fixed so that now the gunshots and the Molotovs and everything will ignore the enemy collision box. You already ignore it, so you can already walk through them. But now they won't block your shots or your projectiles. So that's great. Fix that. Now some balancing changes. There will probably be maybe a few more this month. I'm not sure. But for right now, I noticed that the pistol felt a little too useful in every single situation. And I wanted the pistol to be useful, which is... So, you know, I guess I'm winning on that front. But it felt too good. Then, the submachine gun felt bad. So I actually went and I finally bit the bullet and made a spreadsheet with all the enemy health values and all of the damage values and rate of fire and everything for the weapons, with minimum, maximum, average damage, the average DPS, and broke it down to an amount of shots to kill an enemy, each enemy with each weapon. So that was pretty much all day today. And something that I found was that it's not necessarily that the pistol does too much damage. It's not that it necessarily shoots too fast. I don't want to make it shoot super slow, but it's just that it's too consistently strong. And the submachine gun, when I looked at the stats, the submachine gun was actually really strong, stats-wise. But the one thing that I can't really put into the stats page and just have to feel out in the game for myself is that the accuracy was way too low for the submachine gun. So I'm kind of tweaking the numbers here. And what I did, reduced the minimum damage for the pistol. So the pistol's maximum damage is still actually extremely high. It's higher than every other gun. Other than, like the late game guns that have special ammo. But the pistol's maximum damage is still really strong. And so I lowered the minimum damage pretty significantly. So its average damage is now lower. So the idea was that you can still, if you get lucky, can still kill a lot of strong enemies in just, 2 shots with the pistol. But your odds of doing that are much lower now. And if you get screwed on luck, then you can actually take... It's going to take a lot of shots to kill some enemies if you get really, really, really bad luck. But that shouldn't happen because I'm basing it off of the average damage. So the rate of fire, I said I didn't want to mess with the rate of fire too much on the pistol. It was firing just a little too fast. And so I reduced the rate of fire barely. Like just about as little as will make a difference. And then I increased its accuracy. So the idea between the pistol versus the submachine gun is that the submachine gun, it uses the same ammo type. They share ammo. But the submachine gun is supposed to be a really good option for close range. So it's got really high DPS, but the problem is that it uses up your ammo quick. The big problem that the SMG had, because I didn't want you to be able to use it, since it's statistically better than the pistol, I didn't want you to use it all the time. So I made its accuracy low. And I wanted the pistol to always be a good range, a good option for accuracy, so that you're able to hit enemies from far away with it. And so I increased the accuracy of the pistol, and the pistol was already really accurate to begin with, but now it's about as accurate as it can be without putting bullets in the same hole. And the submachine gun is now accurate. I don't know how to describe it. It's not great, but it is more accurate than it used to be. And it feels way more useful now. So it's kind of more of a mid-range. It's more viable at mid-range versus before it was almost point blank. So it's much better now. So hopefully the machine gun will start to get a little bit more use, but you're using it a little more situationally. I'm going to keep trying to figure out the balance between the pistol and submachine gun, because I feel like those are going to be the two big competing options. So that I don't necessarily want the SMG to always be the best option because it's a stronger weapon, but I don't want people to never use it. And I don't want the pistol to be so good that you always use it. So, trying to figure out niches for it just across the board here. So, I'll keep on messing with it. Other weapons will probably need to be balanced later too. As I'm getting closer to an early access release here and finishing the first episode, I'm starting to, look into the smaller things a lot more. Smaller thing. I mean, enemy and weapon balance isn't exactly a small thing, but it's much smaller than making guns able to shoot. So I'm working on that more. Going to be focusing a lot more on that. I've heard from a lot of people that the balance seems all right, but might as well tweak it so that it feels more all right. So as I've said, this month we're going to be going into another another alpha build. So we're going to be getting testers into E1M5 and E1M6, and there's been a lot of bug fixes and a lot of visual changes. So we should hopefully be getting good feedback for balance, for a lot of how like the weapons feel, for how the new map design is starting to feel, and just general gameplay impressions. So, and of course, bug fixes. Yeah, always bug fixes with these. I mean, I'd rather find the bugs now than later, but still. Anyway, it'd be nice if there weren't any bugs at all. So, it should be a good month. Next update should be a pretty good one, I think. And yep, that is it for this month. So, thank you very much for watching, everybody. I will see you guys next month. Have a good one.